Nope.
That was an easy one, right? Can't believe it's already this late in September. Oh my gosh. Soon we'll be celebrating Halloween.
Oh,
Or not.
Are we waiting till we have to wait to find out if that's going to happen? Yeah.
Well, we'll be celebrating it one way or another, whether it's
Yeah, that's true.
with other people or not. The stores are already full with Halloween and Thanksgiving gear.
And we found out in a previous year, under normal times, the town has no legal authority to make any statement of when Halloween may be celebrated or not. But maybe the Board of Health could say something during a pandemic.
I've seen these shoots that people are making, candy shoots. you could put the candy down, and it goes down a pipe.
Oh, that's interesting.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not.
Wow.
I see. If you're just joining us, we are asking that if you're visiting, if you're non-trustee, if you just in the chat, put in, so Michelle can make sure she gets you, put in your name and what you're here representing. Most of you should probably be representing the Ad Hoc Committee, or if you have another title that you'd like to be recognized by for the official member, for the official minutes. So if you just throw that in the chat, that would be super helpful, and we'll be able to get that.
Okay.
Amy, just so you're aware, there's only 5 official members, but there's a lot more attendees.
Okay, but they have participated.
Yes.
Right. So I've had a voice, so that's great. And I think we did just hit our quorum with 4 on those joining us. And we are just, if you don't mind, I'll leave it to Nina to decide. If you want to wait for Andrew and John.
I looks like, yeah, I guess we can give people 1 more minute and then we can get started. Yeah, and if that's okay, just in case anyone's having technical issues.
Good news. The good news is that
there will be more people joining among our advisors on the Ad Hoc Committee as well.
Okay, yeah, so we'll give people a couple more minutes.
Yep. So RCTV is recording this, and it is being broadcast, and I'm also going to be recording it to make sure I can get a copy of the chat as well for minutes. So hi, we have a few more people joining us. If you've just joined us, if you are not a trustee member, if you don't mind in the chat, just giving your name and your representation, what you might represent, or how you'd like to be recorded in the minutes as being a visitor to our meeting. I appreciate that. I do know that Andrew said he was going to join us this evening, and it looked like John said he was going to as well. So hopefully it'll come on. Anne, I'm going to make you a co-host, or do you want me to actually, maybe I'll just enable screen sharing for you.
Okay.
Okay. That should be all set.
Okay.
If you want to pull up a.
So I've actually never shared my screen before. All I do is hit share screen, and then you'll see.
You know what? I'm happy to share it. I actually have it. I have it up. There's John.
Okay.
I have it up, so I can go ahead and share my screen if you want. I just have to. Yeah, you'll have to cue me. How about that? How about we agree that you're gonna have to give me a nice cue.
Next. Very good.
Just pull that so I can squish that down. And all right, so how do we do this? All right, so we have everybody except for Andrew at the moment.
Yeah, so we can get started, I think, right, Amy? Does that sound good? Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Nina. I am one of the trustees at the library. So thanks for joining us tonight. We have a big group for our compared to our normal meeting. So it's good to see everyone on screen. So I guess we can come to order now. And we're going to start with the Ad Hoc Committee presentation and update. So take it away.
Excellent. Thank you so much to the Library Board of Trustees and to Amy Lannon for hosting the Ad Hoc Committee on Human Rights this evening. I last visited your committee in March for a preliminary presentation of the Ad Hoc Committee's proposal of the Reading Alliance for Equity and Social Justice. At that time, we decided as a next step that I should go back to the Select Board and the Ad Hoc Committee with questions that the Library Board and that residents had raised relative to the proposal, that we should flesh out the proposal further and be prepared to return to the Library Board with answers to those questions. So we have done that.
Anne, I just want to interrupt you. I just see a chat. I'm sorry. I feel like there's something about calling the Ad Hoc Committee to order. Do you have a quorum?
I believe we do. I will call the Ad Hoc Committee to order then as well. Thank you.
And I'll stop interrupting.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. Probably, if there's anything else that appears in the chat, I may not be paying full attention to the chat. So if I miss something, please feel free to interrupt me at any time.
Will do.
Okay, I think we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so I don't believe all of our members and advisors to the Ad Hoc Committee are with us tonight, but for those of us who are, I thought we might go around and introduce ourselves to the Library Board of Trustees, and we could go in order as our names appear on the screen, and we could indicate our names, the organizations, if any, that we're representing before the Ad Hoc Committee. Our committee has operated sought to utilize an inclusive consensus building process. We have 5 members of the committee, but we have also listened to and incorporated a lot of feedback and work that has been undertaken by our advisors. So, Carla, would you like to kick it off? I think, Carla, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Hello, everyone. My name is Carlo Bacci. I am on the Select Board with Ann Landry and also co-chair of the Ad Hoc Committee, and I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, Carlo. It's been great to co-chair this Ad Hoc Committee together with Carlo since he came on the Select Board in March, and I can't quite recall when we appointed him to the Ad Hoc Committee, but it's been great to have him come on. Sean Brandt and John Parks are also new members since March, and it's been great to work with Andrew since before that time, as well as all of the advisors who've been working and doing this work for a long time. Has Andrew joined us?
Yes.
Yep, I'm here. Sorry, Andrew Grimes. I'm actually representing the Library Board of Trustees on the committee. Yeah, it's been a great experience and happy to be back with the Library Trustees again.
Yay.
I'm Sean Brand. I represent the school committee.
John Parks. I represent the school committee as a member on the Ad Hoc Committee.
Gina McCormick could not be with us tonight, but she is the representative of Reading Embraces Diversity on the Ad Hoc Committee and has been very valuable to our work.
I'm Kyung Yu. I'm participating in the Ad Hoc Committee, also member of Human Relations Advisory Committee. I'm a pastor of the Korean Church of Nazarene.
I'm not quite sure what order we're going in. I'm Linda Snowdoxer. I'm a past school committee member. I was originally a liaison to this committee. I'm a past chair and vice chair of Human Relations Advisory Committee. I belong to the Mass Human Rights Coalition now, and I'm on the Ad Hoc Committee and really thrilled with what we've come up with because it's so much more than we could have done just one of us alone. It's really a group team effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. I was suggesting we go in the order in which people's names appear on the screen, but I know everyone's technology is different, so I can also call on folks. Sharala.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Lestrade. I am an ad hoc member. I am also part of Friends of Reading Metco and a Boston parent.
Thank you so much. You've contributed so much to our work. Angela, I'm not sure if you're here. Okay. I don't believe Angela could be with us this evening. Chris Kelly.
Hi, everyone. Chris Kelly. I am the Assistant Superintendent of Schools in Reading. I also work very closely with our Medco population, and Grant Hightower, our Medco Director, works with me to help with that wonderful program. And I'm here to I represent the schools tonight.
Thank you, Chris. Dave.
Hi, I'm David Clark. I'm the Chief of Police, and I also am a member of the Human Relations Advisory Committee, and very happy to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. I know you've been doing a lot of work for many years and have been with the Ad Hoc Committee since the beginning and since its inception. Kerri.
I'm Kerri Perry. I more recently joined as an advisor, so haven't been in this work as long as others, but have been on the HRAC group and am here representing them in an advisory capacity for the ad hoc.
Thank you, Kerri. Bob.
Thanks, Bob Lerlasher, Town Manager. I've been here since the beginning of the Ad Hoc Committee also, and my interest is in making sure that whatever direction's taken is sustainable and accepted by the community as a whole as best we can.
Thanks, Bob. Monique. I'm not sure if Monique is with us this evening. Monique is, I believe, a past co-chair of the Human Relations Advisory Committee and has been involved with the work of the Ad Hoc Committee for a long time now. Pat.
Hi, Pat Calley. I originally came here to the Ad Hoc Advisory Committee via the school committee and now just represent citizens.
Thank you, Pat. Amy, would you mind moving to the next slide?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I had one thing to say. Yeah, I seem not to be on the slide, which is totally fine, but Josh Gold left. No worries. Chair of the current chair of the Human Relations Advisory Committee, and again also involved with the ad hoc since its inception. So happy to be here.
Thank you, Josh. And I have roles for you later in the presentation, hoping to call upon you. I hadn't forgotten you, but somehow left you off the slide. My apologies. I was hoping that Linda Snowdoxer, who has been with this work from the beginning and before the beginning, before I was elected to the select board or became involved in the work of the ad hoc committee, Linda Snowdoxer has been involved in the work of human rights within the town of Reading and can give us some history about how the ad hoc committee came to be.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. The work of the ad hoc, actually, it dates back to the late 1960s when the Human Relations Advisory Committee was formed. I was able to talk with the past police chief Cormier, as well as some members of that committee. And learned a lot. It was established as an advisory board to the select board in response to multiple concerns about profiling in town. Everybody's heard about Bill Russell, but there were other incidents as well. And it evolved into the formation of the HRAC and training, diversity training for the police from the Department of Justice. And that evolved into the Human Relations Advisory Committee. Around 2011, when there was a lull, the Human Relations Advisory Committee co-chairs, Lori and Monique, worked with Peter Heckenbleckner to update the mission statement to include more engagement, to include education, programming, and outreach, which was already involved, but it was renewing that commitment. It was reframed, the Human Relations Advisory Committee was then reframed again into a advisory only role by the select board between 2014 to 2016, around the time when I became chair. There were multiple meetings at that time with the select board to decide whether to sunset the committee. And there was an increasing frustration and within HRAC and along with the disempowerment of the committee at that time. There were manifestations of hate, racial slurs on cars, swastika in a bathroom, vandalism at a local golf course that had racial slurs and anti-Semitic symbols on it. And then in 2017, there was a, sorry about the ding, there was a, there were swastikas drawn in the high school, the first one of which was reported to me, and I reported it to the superintendent. The schools responded by principals going to the classes and programs and curriculum being instituted. The town decided to bring in Rabbi Susan Abramson and engage the clergy as opposed to the Human Relations Advisory Committee. That was reportedly on the advice of the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, which was consulted. Unfortunately, at that time, a lot of the clergy was heading out. It was the spring and they were heading out on their convenings. But come the fall, Jamie Michaels took over trying to organize education around the hate that was being seen and the multitude of swastikas that were appearing and being counted. The police and the schools and the town manager came out with statements saying that the hate wouldn't be accepted. And ultimately, the Reading Embraces Diversity was formed as a private organization, but not as a substitute for a municipal organization or committee. In September of 2018, there was a select board meeting held in the library of the high school where stakeholders came and shared their concerns and their recommendations on what was needed. And if you want to check out in the, gosh, I think it's the minutes of the ad hoc, I had it written down, but it's not right here. In the minutes, those recommendations are reiterated. I believe it was the June 20th meeting, and it's reiterated in the July 1st packet of the ad hoc, if you want to see all of those recommendations. And they basically were recommending for an empowered town organization to support diversity and inclusion efforts to make Reading a welcoming town, along with addressing human rights and social justice challenges. Yes, it's on, sorry, it's the minutes from 6/17/20. A subsequent meeting with the select board was held in the PAC Center and it was decided that a town organization should be formed, but what the structure of that town organization should be would be determined by an ad hoc committee. And that evolved into us. The leadership originally was assigned to Barry Berman and Vanessa, and then after elections, that was passed on to Andy Friedman and Ann Johnson. Landry. And then subsequent to that, it was, we were joined by Carlo as Andy went off. So I guess that's in a nutshell. I knew the time was of the essence. So I hope that I covered it. If anybody else has something that they wanted to add, but basically the decision was that this committee was a priority and we needed to figure out the best structure in order to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. I thought that was really helpful. I do invite members and advisors to the ad hoc committee to contribute to this presentation as you see fit. If you think there's something to add that those that I have tapped to speak to particular slides, if something isn't covered, please feel free to speak up.
And I would just like to add that subsequently, prior to the 2017 swastika incident, there was a death threat graffitied on one of the middle school bathrooms, claiming to, against Black people and threatening to take lives. And that so easily gets forgotten when we start listing all the things that started this committee that subsequently gets eliminated from conversation. And it is a big conversation because it was the only of all the things that were done, it was the only actual death threat written. And up to this day, it's the only event that has never been publicized and really discussed. So I'd like to add that.
Thank you for sharing, Sharla. Other comments? All right, next slide, please, Amy. Okay, so I had originally asked Gina if she would be willing to speak to some of the homework that we did as the ad hoc committee before we arrived at our proposal, but Gina was unable to attend this evening. I'm happy to speak to this. If anyone else would like to contribute, please feel free. We broke up assignments in looking at other communities and how they modeled their human rights related organizations. There was a wide array. Many communities employ something of a public-private partnership where they have a town or city sponsored human rights organization, and then there is some kind of private organization that does similar work. When we were looking at what kind of model would work for a municipal organization for the town of Reading, we looked at 3 possible models, and Gina did a lot of homework working with town council and speaking with Erica McNamara, the executive director of the Reading Coalition for Prevention and Support, on which we are basing our proposal as a model. So the three possible models we looked at were a municipal department established committee, which the Reading Alliance for Equity and Social Justice, as we have envisioned it, would be falling under the library, much like the Reading Coalition for Prevention and Support falls under the Reading Police Department. We looked at the possibility of a bylaw established committee or a multiple board established committee. 2 of the challenges that we saw with models 2 and 3 were that we would be unable under models 2 and 3 to include non-residents in the work of said committee. And where we feel that, and I think the language that we've used in the mission contemplates kind of a narrow incorporation of non-residents, where someone whose children attend school in Reading, for example, the parent of a Reading Public School student who participates in the METCO program, should be able to be involved in the work of human rights for the community of Reading. We also were concerned about not allowing a member of a clergy for whom there is not a house of worship in Reading, but when there are parishioners who live in Reading who are part of that faith, but would benefit from seeing, for example, a rabbi as part of the work of human rights in Reading. We also discussed the challenges of open meeting law with respect to some of the sensitive nature of human rights work, much like with the Reading Coalition for Prevention and Support. We want people to be able to seek resources if they're experiencing personal challenges in a confidential manner. So we felt that the Reading Coalition for Prevention and Support provided a model that we would like to emulate. And I've included more details in the frequently asked questions that appear in the library board's packet. I think if you'd like to move to the next slide, Amy, that would be great. Josh, would you be willing to speak to this slide, how the Reading Alliance, we would envision interacting with the Human Relations Advisory Committee and Reading Embraces Diversity?
Sure, just taking a quick look here. So from the current chair of HRAC, where we would see the Reading Alliance really would subsume where HRAC is today. HRAC being a offshoot of or supporting the board, the select board. This really would then bring on those capabilities to support what it says more broad resource of the town, and would be able to bring in those resources to support the entire town, whether it's something that's happening within schools or an adjunct of other things that are happening much more broadly. Whereas HRAC is required to do things that are from an open meeting perspective and has functions of volunteers. This would be something that is much more full-time and dedicated, and again, just has a much broader charter and provides much broader support than where HRAC can be. The library representatives would get a chance to attend the HRAC meeting. So as HRAC is still going to be around until the Reading Alliance really gets off the ground. So we'll start to have that cross participation within HRAC until, like I said, things get fully approved and off the ground. And then really this would then be a blend from a public and private perspective, and giving us a chance to have a much broader diversity in the organization that'll sit next to kind of everything else that's going on within the town. And again, in connection with RED, which is that public-private, being able to handle things that maybe can't necessarily be done on just what it says more of a rigid town-based schedule. So really, it is the best of both, and giving that blend for full support as broad as possible outside of where HRAC has those certain limitations today. And I'd open that up and see if there's others that want to contribute as well.
Thank you, Josh. I think one thing to point out is that the idea that library representatives could attend HRAC meetings came to us from your wonderful library director, Amy Lannon, who has been very helpful to the ad hoc committee in the last couple of months in helping us to think through some of the aspects of this proposal and how to bring it forward to the library board. Go ahead, Linda.
In terms of Reading Embraces Diversity, Reading Embraces Diversity never envisioned itself as taking the place of an organization affiliated with the town, and does envision itself, if I can, hopefully I can speak for us, as working with the Alliance to do programming and education and be supportive and collaborative with one another, but not to take the place of a town entity we felt it was very important that there was something affiliated with the town, making the statement that our town itself is invested in this welcoming, inclusion, diversity work. Thank you.
That's a good point. Thank you, Linda. Others? All right. Amy, we can move to the next slide. So you have in your packet all of the details of the proposal. It's substantially the same as the last time I came before the library board. We have modified the proposal slightly, whereas originally we had envisioned there being an interim board of advisors who would hire the director position. We are now envisioning that Amy, your director, would do that work utilizing a selection committee that she could appoint among stakeholders, representatives from elected boards, and others. So we are envisioning someone who would be a paid director for this organization who could then appoint an advisory board, much like Erica McNamara acts as executive director of the Reading Coalition for Prevention and Support and appoints an advisory board that constitutes the coalition. I can read to you the mission. You can find in your packet further details about the responsibilities, but the Reading Alliance is a municipal organization that fosters and supports a Reading culture that promotes and celebrates diversity. The Reading Alliance honors our shared humanity and condemns, confronts, and responds to discrimination, racism, bias, and hate. The organization also strives to educate, empower, and connect community members and town staff to do the same. I should say that when we, in January, took kind of a straw poll of the ad hoc committee, if this was the direction and the structure that the ad hoc committee members and our advisors were interested in, it was unanimous amongst everyone present that this was the direction the ad hoc committee and its advisors would recommend. I'm wondering if it would make sense, particularly for folks at home, for us to go over the frequently asked questions that appear in the packet. We could do that during the question and answer section that we have contemplated for this presentation. So I'll hold until that time. But I'm thinking, because I did look in the ad hoc committee's packet and the library board's packet do not appear on the website for the town. We'll make sure that they are included in the ad hoc committee's next publicized packet. But for those watching at home tonight, we can also go over these FAQs, which I think are responsive to the questions that residents raised, as well as Library Board of Trustees members raised at the last meeting when this proposal came before you. Would anyone else like to speak? Would anyone else like to speak to this slide? We can move to the next. Kerri, Pat, and Andrew put together a draft job description, and I'm not sure if I had spoken with both Kerri and Pat. It was not certain who might be able to attend tonight, and it turns out that both of you were able, but certainly open the floor to whomever would like to speak to your work there.
Sure, this is Kerri. I can speak high level to it. So within the packet, there is the description. So in regards to that, we did tie kind of the mission or the overview of, what the role is, really a lot to the different mission and different items that are listed, within the general description. So there's a, summary in regards to the role. So it really ties a lot to the mission that Anne was mentioning. And then, it really does highlight this individual and what they'll be doing as far as being an inspirational leader, really working within the community, working with different stakeholders, being able to do project management, to bring groups together, and provide results. So did a nice draft of kind of some of the essential functions, really tying in again more around the Alliance's mission, and then also the detail around leading the Alliance's advisory and action board, and the ability to pull together projects and strategic focus, and really also tie into the library's strategic plan. So we did highlight in there some competencies such as personal effectiveness, relationship building, collaboration, leadership. So quite detailed, which provides a nice starting point for the library to view the different components that we would see as important, not only for the roles and responsibilities, but also the qualifications of someone coming into this role as a starting point to then further have the library view that and work with the Human Resources Department within the town to fine tune that. So we erred on the side of more versus less, thinking that you could always edit it as you saw fit.
Thank you, Kerri. Pat or Andrew, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I think also, maybe importantly for members of the town, we did come up with some sort of milestones to measure the success of the director in their position, in their role, and of the board. And so that's one way we plan for accountability in terms of, you know, what is the direction that this whole project will take.
Thank you, Pat. Would you like to discuss, mention some of those markers?
I can give you a few. I got to look at my screen, so hang on. Yeah. We had talked about in the first 2 months, we'd like to see them have their board fully appointed, and then searched out a thorough list of resources to provide the community with and to complete their work. Within the first 6 months, have conducted a thorough needs assessment, interviewing all the key stakeholders in the community, reviewing metrics and conducting community listening sessions, and come up with a maybe 1 to 2 year action plan that they would outline within the first 6 months. So we have a few, I think, anything else? Plan and complete 1 to 2 quarterly community engagements, because that was one of the things we wanted to do, was have a lot of community outreach and activities that were available to the community for just education and further connections.
Yeah, and I think annually we also had in there to have an action plan, you know, compiled annually to be presented to the Library Board of Trustees, of course, and also perhaps the Reading Select Board, which would, you know, be looking forward, but then also looking back on the prior year regarding progress and results against those goals in the action plan. So just some more things that we offered for consideration.
Thank you both. I think we can move to the next slide. Carla, would you like to talk about your experience of the process since March?
Yeah, thank you. So since March, we've had monthly meetings, and more recently we met with Amy, Bob, Ann, and God, if it was Andrew on the call, I forget, and we had a presentation, and we discussed going forward, and we kept on refining what's in your packet, which is a lot. There was a lot of thought and a lot of hard work put into that, a lot of feedback, a lot of give and take, and a lot of good suggestions. And Amy felt that making this part of your strategic plan would be the best fit, and be able to present this to town meeting in an open forum in next April. And, you know, given whatever budget needs there are, and it can be addressed then. But also, Ann read the mission, but along with the mission, what this committee has been doing more since March. Obviously, I'm new to this, but we were kind of bringing it to the finish line here these past several months, with a lot of input. And we were just refining the structure, refining the FAQs, refining how this would serve the town, how many people would be on the board potentially. So a lot was done going forward. And then Amy, as the library director, will be part of the hiring process or the lead person hiring along with the selection committee. And that could be, anyone from that Amy so chooses. Hopefully there'll be some input from the school committee, maybe from the board or other committees in town, from HRAC, whatever she sees fit. And then with human resources, there'll be a job search undertaken once this is approved. And in the FAQs, as Ann mentioned, there's a lot of information there that the public might have, but these FAQs were formed primarily at an open meeting with residents, I think back in January. Ann, is that correct? I think where that was a public meeting and the residents were allowed to come and ask questions. So a lot of that.
It was, I think, really at the meeting. All of our meetings have been open meetings, but where we first really started hearing from was at the presentation to the library board in March.
Okay, sorry, in March. And that brought on a lot of questions, and those were answered and addressed. And so now here we are on September, whatever it is, 14th, and presenting this to the Library Board of Trustees. The packet that you have is a lot of information, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them tonight. There are a lot of people who invested a lot of time in this venture, and they would warrant your questions and hopefully be able to answer them. But I think up to this point, the ad hoc committee is pretty close, if not tonight, getting ready to hand it off to you lovely folks and to move this forward.
Thank you, Carlo. That your remarks remind me that the last time I was before the library board, we were envisioning, and this was in consultation with the town manager at the time. This was March 9th, I believe, that I was before you. So right before the world changed, we were envisioning that we would bring this before November town meeting at that point in time for a supplemental appropriation in the middle of the fiscal year. We now, based on conversations with Bob and Amy, looking at incorporating this into the library strategic plan and some more predictability in budget planning, looking to present this at April town meeting, as we hope as part of the library's budget. That is our hope. Thank you very much. And what is our next slide, Amy? I can't quite remember. This was a slide, I certainly think Linda touched on some of this in her earlier remarks, as did Cheryl. But Cheryl, I don't know if you would be interested in speaking more to why Reading needs a municipal human rights related organizations, what need there is in the community for this work.
I think because Reading it is a very good community. It can be a more welcoming community where it's actual residents of color or of different cultures and backgrounds and religions feel welcome. Right now, I know there are some families in Reading who don't feel welcome, who are afraid to talk out, or even afraid, because they've been bullied by other residents. And yes, it's something that happens and no one speaks about it because these people are fearful. And I think a group like this would be really great because it's going to help those people feel that they're not alone. There's strength in numbers. There's someone that they can turn to. There's other things that they can do as opposed to, hiding their feelings or being afraid. And that there's people who are going to help them get through it. There are people who are willing to know and able to help them fight the wrongs that are being done. And I think that this is a very important part of why this is needed. Not just the residents, but we have MECO students who get on the bus every day, and their families right now, especially with everything that's going on in our societies, that, you know, your kids walk out the house to go to school and you don't know what's going to happen. And that's a really big fear. I personally think that, you know, we're not just afraid in our own neighborhoods. We're not just afraid riding the bus. We're not just afraid going to school. Right now, people are afraid everywhere they go. And I think it's time that we take hold of that and, you know, fight the hate, and let those people who want to be hateful know that there are more of us than there are of them, and that there are people who are going to fight the wrongs.
Thank you, Cheryl. Would anyone like to add anything?
If I could add something, so again, Josh Goldlust. So having this be a municipal organization is important for the town's commitment to supporting all residents. There are lots of groups that can, in a private sector, provide some of those from a stopgap perspective, but having this be a municipal, something that the town is invested in for all of its citizens, is very important. It shows that commitment that Cheryl was talking about for all of the things that happen, and someone who's looking and feeling this full time, and someone who this is where they're ensuring that throughout the community, everyone is getting support, not just only certain people on certain times for certain events that tend to raise visibility. So of critical importance, I think we've talked to the need, but ensuring that this again is something that is part of the town's fabric, part of the municipal, and it is a commitment from the town for all residents.
Community priority and a community commitment.
And I'd like to add that I think what really touches me is the fact that we're not just reaching the adults, but we're reaching the young people, and that's really important as well. And their voices are being heard. I had the great opportunity, was it last month, to be interviewed by 4 wonderful students who, you know, were doing a project for RCTV, and Josh's son reached out to me and asked, can he interview me? And I was, you know, like, certainly. But it's reaching the younger generation, which is very important, because those students are our future. When we are no longer in charge and running things, those are the students who are going to be in control. Those are the students who are going to be taking this work further than we can ever imagine. And I think reaching them and offering them the opportunity for their voices to be heard, and their, you know, their ideas to be thought of and used in some situations, I think that's very important, and it's very significant.
That's a great point, Cheryl. And it makes me wonder if Bob, Amy, or Chris would have any interest in sharing how the Reading Coalition for Prevention and Support is able to kind of cross the different town departments and in providing support, and how the Reading Alliance could do something similar across departments, serving the schools and the children and the youth and the future, serving our town employees, serving the library's patrons, serving our entire community.
I'll start, but I think you need to hear from, particularly Chris. When we meet with Erica and now with Sammy, I have never viewed that as a town government function or position. It's a community effort. I've always viewed it that way, and I hope the schools feel the same way. And I think that's the real objective, is to come into the room with that mindset that this is a community endeavor and it's not territorial. We always work very well collaboratively in this town. And that's really the key to this position succeeding, because we know that other communities it has not succeeded, is to make sure it's a very wide groundswell of effort behind it. And that's why formerly our CASA succeeded, because the schools, the police, and the town, were three legs of the stool that always stood firm. And I think that's important for this organization also.
Thanks, Bob. I'm going to hop on to that. So I totally agree. As you know, the last 2 years being involved in the Reading Public Schools, I agree. Erica and Sammy are on, my cell. We regularly communicate. I don't look at them as, they work here and I work here. We work jointly as things come up. There are certain projects that they're involved in, like the risk survey that gets done every other year. But in addition, we do a lot of professional development, both internally and externally. And I would love to see this position be a similar role, where the police, the fire, the town offices, the library, the school department, like, we're just working together as a community resource. And I think that's the beauty of the coalition, and a tribute to their success, is that we work in partnership. So when I discuss something with Erica or Sammy, if it's something that's beyond the school, they're maybe bringing it back to Bob or bringing it back to the police department or whatever. And then pretty soon we have a common conversation. I would see this position as such as well. We've been doing a lot of equity training in the schools. I would love to be able to partner with whomever this person is and this committee to really talk about even some of the trainings that we've done internally in the Reading Public Schools, how we could partner with other organizations as well. So I agree. I love that idea, that symbolic idea of the tripod. We absolutely work very seamlessly, and I think that's a tribute to the coalition and their team, as well as the various departments that have worked seamlessly with that. But I believe that could be replicated. I believe that it's an excellent model, and I know other communities feel the same way when they call us and ask us about the information and the work that we do with the coalition. I see this as being another model that other communities, if they don't already have this in place, will be, looking at. I know other communities already are working on strategic plans that include this kind of work, just as we are considering with equity. So thank you, Bob.
So I also will chime in. I agree with Bob and I agree with Chris. One other aspect of way to look at this that I think is really important, and it's something that I do see with the coalition, is that this is where, by working together, you're also having the opportunity to reduce duplication of work. So if I'm doing equity training in the library and Sean from HR is doing equity in town hall departments and Chris is doing equity. So first of all, how much time and effort are each one of us spending trying to reach out and network, find curriculums, find speakers, find programs, get our people to do that. And having that same, this is what we do with the coalition, everybody gets to do mental health first aid training. And it's, we get the, Erica is trained and Sammy is trained, and then we have trained the trainers, and it affects the fire department and the police department, and it affects the schools, and the library staff get trained. So that it reduces the duplication of effort. It actually is quite efficient to sort of centralize, but also share. It's not about necessarily centralizing of power. It's actually about expanding the impact of any one of these initiatives. So I think it's a really nice model to kind of go with.
Thank you, Amy. And I should have asked as well if Chief Clark would like to share anything on this topic.
Sorry. Honestly, I think the three, Bob, Amy, and Chris covered it. It's a true group of people, and even though they're housed at the police station, it's not a police function. It's a totally across the community. It's about helping the community and getting the people in the community that have issues, get them the help they need. And that's it's been a great team collaborative between all of us, and it's all of us working together. And the hard work between Eric and Sam has made it so successful. But having the backing from the town and all the town groups has made it what it is and kept it sustained. And I'm looking forward to keeping that kind of collaboration. And like I said, I couldn't have said it better than the other three, but it's a true collaborative effort town-wide.
Thank you, Chief. Other comments?
If I might, Anne, just want to make sure for the trustees that you understand at least my intention, and I believe our intention. When we discussed putting it into your master plan, if you will, and into the library's budget request for this winter, we do have a mechanism by which we're not asking you to remove something else from your budget in order to afford this. We have a mechanism called accommodated costs, where this position, if you will, would get added on top. And that's how we started the very first school resource officer. It was a position that was added first. The police department did not have to find how to pay for that. So just to be clear, we're not asking the library for your resources. We're just providing you with the opportunity to use the resources.
Thank you for that clarification, Bob. I think next slide then. Question. So I had earlier in the presentation thought we could go through the FAQs. I am seeing the time, however, and given that they are all written out in your packet, I don't want to waste anyone's time. For residents and folks watching at home, we can include all of them in our next ad hoc committee packet. They're substantially the same, basically identical. I did add one question, but substantially the same as that which appeared in our last ad hoc committee packet. Given that I think it's all the same, but for the last, I can just read the last question that was added, which was, can the Alliance engage in fundraising to support its work? No, per town council's office. If the Alliance wants to provide resources by way of fundraising, an independent Friends of group would need to be established. The Friends group could not include town employees, must be completely separate from the town or library department, and cannot have taxpayer funds cross over. It should establish itself as a nonprofit corporation with the Secretary of the Commonwealth, file for 501c3 status with the IRS, and register as a public charity with the Attorney General's office if it wants to fundraise. This is consistent with the advice given to the new Arcasa. Now, we should all note that this prohibition on fundraising would not preclude employees from applying for grant funding to support the Alliance's programming. But are there questions from the Board of Trustees?
This is Minette Verrier. Bob, I just want to say thanks for explaining the funding and accommodated costs, because that I was, when that comment was made that it was going to be part of our budget, that was a new information. So I appreciate understanding how it works. My question is that a follow-on thing, or is accommodated costs what it is the first year that you're funding a new position, and then after that, the library would be, expected to be able to fund that out of our budget? How does that work on a future basis?
Thanks, Monette. It would be a first year, and then, if you will, you would have a moral obligation to continue it because you'd keep the money. So, it's always up to the trustees to decide how to use the money, but I think it's a fair assumption to say, with the school resource officer, it was an understanding that it would go in as a school resource officer the first year and stay that way. So you will have funding forever on that position.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm good morally. I was more wondering, is it, I'll just throw out a number, right? Is it $40,000 extra that you get the first year and then you don't get it? You're sort of expected to figure out how you make it work from your previous pool. So it's an ongoing commitment from the town.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
This is Chair Dubois. I have a question. If this committee falls under the jurisdiction of the public library, does that mean that the trustees have any role to play, or any obligations or responsibilities?
So I would say that with respect to the accountability for the position and the organization, yes, the director position would report to the library director, who reports to you. So in that fashion, yes.
I'll just pitch in here as the person who is potentially, possibly being involved with this. Kerri, I think it's that one way to think about it is, and I think this is actually how it would go into the, I don't know, budget for lack of a better word, or the classification system. It would be a division. So just as our collection services division or public services divisions periodically report to you, or the action plan or strategic plan that I file with the state has goals and objectives for those divisions. The division for equity and social justice, headed up by a director that also had an advisory committee, which could include a trustee, would have those goals and would be reported in the director's report that you get, in addition to, like this evening, we have a summer reading report, and we also have state of the collection reports that come in. So yes, there's an accountability piece. There's absolutely an opportunity for involvement, just like, getting involved with policy development or strategic planning. Trustees definitely have the option to be involved with that. I hope that answers your question.
That's sort of, I think. Would we ever be held accountable for anything that went wrong?
Nothing's going to go wrong, Kerri.
I realize that, but in a wild case, it might.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. And I mean, Bob, I think might have some of the answer in terms of, what the legal, obviously they've already consulted town council. So the legal liabilities of that. Is that what you're interested in?
Sort of, I guess, because I think if things go wrong in the library, we're responsible for any screw-ups that we may have approved, not knowing that what was happening and we weren't really doing our job of oversight properly.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And honestly, I need to think about that and maybe ask some questions here. I understand kind of what angle you're coming from. Generally speaking, our elected boards, if you will, have insurance. So there certainly shouldn't be any personal liability. Whether the town has any liability is always a difficult question. We often are the deepest pockets around, so we certainly are subject to litigation. But I understand your angle, and I'm going to think about that and ask some questions, Sherry.
Okay, thank you.
I am checking our email, and I'm not seeing any other emails coming in at the moment. Maybe tomorrow. Any other questions from the trustees? And I can go back to sharing your last slide, which I think had the next steps on it. Hang on.
I'm actually wondering, Amy, if it would be possible to share that the FAQs within this meeting so that people aren't waiting for, the public is not waiting to see the answers to these questions. It's hard to find sometimes.
Sure.
And I want to make sure that the accurate information gets out.
Yep.
Thank you.
Let's see here. Just hang on with me while I get the right view. Nope. Wrong one. Sorry. There we go. All right, let's try this. Share. I have a lot of screens open. Just want to make sure I get the right one.
FAQs are in tonight's packet as well.
Yeah, so the packet's not available publicly
Oh,
right now.
Why is that?
I think we just did, we usually just, it's not something that goes out normally. Okay. Can everybody see that? Can you all see that? Frequently asked questions? Great.
Yes. Thank you so much, Amy.
Do you want to just go through them, or I don't know how much, I mean, I know obviously you all have had time to kind of read through these. There are a total of 10. And talk to you about the last one. Question have to do with the need, why the choice for this particular structure, how would the organization make sure that there was transparency, advantages to this, or why this particular structure. We talked about the coalition, and why the library. I think that may not have been touched upon in the discussion this evening. And then there's a question about the actual advisory and action group, a question about First Amendment, and a question about the importance of having a director. So if any of those are questions that you'd like to have follow-up discussion with, happy to host that.
You mentioned that we hadn't touched on why the library. And I think it's because we share the mission and the library. This would enable the library to expand its mission and reach more of the town through more of the professional development. As an example, as you mentioned, it provides some efficiency of labor so that if there's something like the mental health that the coalition does, if there's something on diversity or inclusion or racism or empowering minorities or whatever it might be, then there's efficiency there that this organization can help the library and help the schools and help the town all at once coordinate that. And that also can save money as well.
Linda, if I could just put a little refinement on what you said about,
Sure.
it's not so much that it would expand the library's mission. I think we see the mission of the Reading Alliance as falling squarely within the library's mission, and it would allow the library to expand the reach of its existing mission.
Thank you for that clarification.
And do you want to go over what the next steps are?
So I've spoken with Carlo about this. I've spoken with Amy about this a little bit, but this is certainly a conversation that I think makes sense to be had among the ad hoc committee and the library board as a whole. Personally, I would feel comfortable with the ad hoc committee handing off this proposal to the library board of trustees and entrusting the trustees with the proposal. Should you wish to take it on and incorporate it within I think it's already been incorporated into this thinking around the strategic plan and looking at the FY 22 budget. And one thing that the ad hoc committee has discussed with Amy is that we have done a lot of work on refining this mission and structure, but that it makes sense for it to be flexible and for the library board of trustees and the director to take this and make it into something that is workable. So, although we've worked very hard on this, if in making it functional, 8 to 14 members of 8 to 14 members of an advisory board shifts into 5 or 25, because that is what the director finds to be, and the library director and the library board of trustees find to be workable and functional, that is fine. So I wanted to stress that we wanted to provide as much detail and specificity as possible so that this was a solid proposal, but that we want it to be workable. And so in that sense, we are flexible in that way. For the ad hoc committee, some of the advisors and I've discussed have suggested to me, and I've discussed this with Carlo, the possibility of including sort of an interim report from the ad hoc committee for November town meeting. We wouldn't be bringing it before November town meeting for a vote, but kind of a status update as to where we are. And I'm not sure this is something we'll have to discuss with Bob and with Alan Folds, the town moderator. It may be that all reports from committees will be in written form as part of the warrant report, as was the case for April town meeting, given that we will be having, again, a virtual town meeting. But I think it would make good sense for town meeting members to get a preview of this in November before asking them to vote on it come April.
And it's been mentioned a couple times. I'm sorry, I don't know, I guess just throwing in my additional 20 cents. It's been mentioned several times about the library strategic planning, and some of you have been involved with that process, which we're kind of COVID modifying, moving along in. And so I've had a lot of time over the last year. It's time for us to do our strategic plan. Something I've been through several processes of these. And just to kind of contextualize what I've been hearing from the ad hoc committee over and through my own experience, both working here and being a resident. In a normal strategic plan for any department, whether it's elder services or, I don't know, community development, you do surveys, you ask for feedback, and you get everything from, we want to have more of this, and no, we actually want less of this. You have all sorts of comments and all sorts of suggestions. And what you do is you look for patterns and trends. And then as the person who's doing this strategic planning, it's up to you to say, aha, I've identified a need. Now I have to, and my team has to figure out how to meet that need. Maybe for us in previous years, it was establishing early literacy as a priority because we need something for families with kids under school age. That's something. So now it's up to me and it's up to the library team to figure out how to do that, right? What has happened here is the community has spoken about something that they really feel they need. And you all have come together and given the library a roadmap and said, here's a way you can do it. And so from my perspective, and I hear and I see, trust me, I understand what a lot of work has gone into this, because if someone had said to me, or we had done a strategic plan and had said, wow, we really need to work on our equity, diversity, inclusion, and social justice, which we know we have to, I could not have ever dreamed of doing something this big or this impactful that would have such a, it really would have started out, or it has started out much smaller. So all of you have put together what I think is a wonderful roadmap on how to implement this at a community-wide level. And I think the library, with its education and focus on education and pillars and community education and connection, I think it's a reasonable place to put it, which isn't to say it couldn't go someplace else, but to have something show up on my inbox with a job description already, drafted, there's nothing worse than a blank page, right? So having something started, we can always work with that. So I appreciate the amount of work and thought and discussion and dialogue, not debate, but dialogue that's gone on around this. So and from my perspective, it feels very well thought out as something that I think the whole library staff could work with.
Thank you, Amy. I'm trying to remember exactly, but I think when we were, when the ad hoc committee was thinking and contemplating the town department established committee and where it could go, I think it was Andrew who said, how about the library? And Bob said, that's what I was thinking. I think I remember the two of them being among, if not the first, among the first to say the library would be a great place.
Yeah.
This is Alice speaking. And Amy, I think you really spoke well about this, that I think we've heard some different things tonight, mainly about the budget. And also it feels as though it's become a more direct responsibility for the trustees than perhaps we envisioned when we saw you the last time, Anne. But I think it's an exciting opportunity for the library and definitely something that, will meet well what our strategic plan is going to outline for our own goals as well. So I am excited to be part of this, and I thank you all for the hard work that you've done to get it to this stage. I hope that we will be able to carry it further. Thank you.
Thanks, Alice. Okay, no fair. Monette has a dog. Any other comments from the trustees?
I'd like to thank the trustees for their time. As is usually the case, I pledge to Amy my support, but not my interference. So whatever she needs, she knows how to ask.
Yeah.
And I guess I do sort of remember the moment where it sort of occurred to me that the library might be a good place, as we were sort of talking about all the different things that the committee will be doing in the long run. So much of it was educational and community building related that I was just like, wow, that's like all our goals right there. So I'm very comfortable with the idea of having it under the library.
Mm-hmm.
Just a quick question on, and I echo what everyone's saying. Thank you so much for all this work. It's great to read through and to hear tonight more details about this. I think it's really exciting. In terms of like the idea of passing off the proposal to the trustees, if moving forward towards November or April, if there are questions from the public, does the committee kind of address those questions or thoughts from the public that might come up, or does that mean that the trustees would be answering questions and responding to comments or concerns?
Well, the ad hoc committee can respond to questions and concerns about what we have done.
Got it.
Whatever you do going forward, you would respond to what you do. I think that there's work that the ad hoc committee could do in preparing a proposal for November town meeting and possibly for April town meeting. As of now, we are scheduled to sunset in December, and I think it's a conversation that the ad hoc committee should have at our next meeting if there's any value in extending the life of the ad hoc committee through April next year. There may actually be more value in the ad hoc committee disbanding in December officially, and then folks can prepare for town meeting as town meeting members, residents who support the idea. So there's probably more than one way to go. Certainly, as select board members who co-chaired the ad hoc committee, Carlo and I, remain responsible for questions as to the work that we've done on that ad hoc committee. Because even if the ad hoc committee disbands, Carlo and I will continue to be serving as select board members.
This is Chair Dubois. I would think that the library trustees should not have any direct responsibility until this is actually approved and voted on. It's not officially part of the library until that happens, I would guess. And so therefore, I think that any questions that come should go to the ad hoc committee.
Terry, I would agree, and I think part of the timing issue here is that I don't know if something will happen in November in terms of just a report, but if nothing can happen until April, then again, kind of like with the normal budget process, I would be developing a normal project process that would also include and if. So, and if this exists, this would be that. And So action plans, all of that would also have sort of an amendment and or, you know, a sort of footnote of other things that might happen if this should move forward. Also, even if it's approved in April, I mean, depending on where the world is, there's advertising, you know, I would continue. I think we as a team, we actually do have a diversity and inclusion and social justice team at the library that would be able to help refine the job description, work with Sean Donahue and HR. We could be ready to roll when it's accepted. I'm positive when it's accepted. But even then, you still have to advertise and hire. So it could be well into September before you've even hired someone, and then, you know, 3 months to get them up and running. So it is you know, this isn't going to happen tomorrow. I mean, people may think that we're doing.
No, I understand that it's not going to happen tomorrow, but the question was, who takes the questions? And there was some suggestion that maybe the library trustees would, and I'm thinking, first of all, I don't think we're well informed enough or as aware of the whole process. So I think the questions probably belong to the committee.
I have a question. So if we're talking about passing it over to the Library Board of Trustees, when are you looking to do that? As well as giving them enough time to prepare, you know, review the documents, prepare whatever part that they're going to want to, you know, make their own, to revamp, to fit their needs and their ways of doing things, whatever's going to work best for them, and presented it in November or April, even if it is in November and you're just giving, like, it's not going to be voted on, but just like in discussion. When would the Library Board of Trustees like to receive that information so that it becomes something that you're now trying to work into your program? When would the timeline be for that you would be comfortable with, where you would be able to work through it for your comfortabilities, and it not be in the ad hoc's hands, and you would have more control over what's going on and what's being done?
Well, I think one thing is that it's almost November, frankly. I mean, we're not very far away from November anymore. I think it's only like 6 weeks away or 7. So that's not very much time. I don't know. I mean, I think I can't answer that question, but I know that November's pretty close.
If I could ask a related question, and I don't know if you have an answer for this year. Typically, town departments present to the Board of Selectmen, now Select Board, in first 2 weeks of December. I guess I'll say budget requests. So it's not a balanced budget, it's just requests. FinCom met last week and discussed whether the budget process should change because of COVID and be pushed further into the spring. But I think from where I sit, I think that early December discussions should go on as scheduled, but that's contingent on the library trustees and the director having a budget wish list, not a balanced budget, in place sometime before Thanksgiving. So is that practical?
From my perspective, yes.
Because if all you need is, if all we're talking about is money, then that part is easy to, I think, pin down. But I think anything else beyond just talking about how much we're going to pay the director, I think that's much more complicated.
Yeah, agreed. That's something that Amy and HR needs to work out, and I'll butt in as I need to. You know, it's helpful that the group got a job description together because that gives everyone a jumping off point.
Right.
So I would just add, you know, I think there's not really a formal to hand over, right? There's not really a thing, you know, an explicit responsibility per se to hand over. So what I would offer is that I think all of us on the committee and all the advisory board or all the advisors, I think would be happy to be a resource if you folks on the library board start fielding questions. You can reach out to us, you can direct those to us, you can, do whatever you need to do. I will say that it's going to become important, particularly as we approach April town meeting, for the library board and Amy to be, strong supporters and be sort of the big advocates for this. This is, under this model, it's going to fall under the library. And so representing how it fits into your mission, how it supports your goals, which I've heard several of you do already tonight, is going to be really important rather than it being, this ad hoc committee, the library doing something on behalf of this ad hoc committee, right? I don't think that's the place we want to be in 6 months. And I think that transition will happen a little bit organically as you start to, put your own stamp on the proposal and the job description and that sort of thing. But in the meantime, I'm pretty confident all of us are happy to serve as resources in whatever way we can.
Thank you.
I actually have a question on process. I'm just wondering, I guess in my mind, I had imagined that if the Board of Trustees is interested in adopting this, then there would be some kind of vote to decide that. And then going to town meeting, that would be like a ratification of what the Board of Trustees are willing to take on. To Sean's point, we had actually discussed that many of us are very willing to be, at one point we called ourselves advisors, but resources to the library. So I'm just reinforcing what Sean said, that we don't want to drop a hot potato on your lap and run. We're all very, very invested in this and making sure you're comfortable with this and sharing whatever knowledge that we've learned along the way to help you make this a reality. We're not planning, I'm afraid to say this, we're not running away from this. We're still here for you.
Right.
And I also envisioned the November town meeting not to be something that was primarily a library responsibility. I was viewing it as a report by the ad hoc of where we've been, how we got to here, and how we have decided to hopefully make this handoff to someone, the library, who will cherish our baby as much as we do and help the town appreciate it as much as we hope it will. So I wasn't viewing it as the library's responsibility to create that November town meeting report.
I guess maybe I would like to propose, because I know we're our 30-minute thought process is just like totally going out of the water here. But I guess what I would like to propose is that going forward, first of all, I will attend, if it's okay with you, I'll attend the ad hoc meetings. Josh, please get me on your list. If it's not me, I'll get somebody from the library to HRAC separately. And, if we can, maybe have a liaison to Red as well, I'm sure I can find a staff member to do that. So going forward, we'll definitely be putting a little staff time to it. And in addition to my regular reports, I'll include for the trustees progress that the staff, not just me personally, but the staff in the library are making, how it relates to our missions, just like I provide, regular personnel updates or collection updates, program updates. I'll give you an update on where that's going. And like many projects that we work on, sometimes we work on them and then, I don't know, sometimes like pandemics happen and the whole rug gets pulled out and we can't do, an outdoor food truck and music event anymore. And so that's totally off the table. It doesn't discount all the work and energy that went into that. We actually have the blueprints and the work behind it. So so we'll just keep working on it as we go along. And as we come up with issues and problems or questions, I can liaise with the ad hoc committee, with HRAC and with Red, not me personally, but the library can liaise with that and then report back to the trustees. So if we sort of keep working as we can together and keep the communications going, and then if things keep moving, we'll just keep moving. If they hit a road bump or whatever, a bump in the road, then we'll pause and see where we need to redirect. and unless the trustees, that's when you would say, stop, we can't do this anymore. Or ad hoc, you would say, stop, this is not, or you will sunset. So I'd like to propose that we kind of move forward that way. If that sounds acceptable.
Good to me. Yeah.
Yep.
Sounds
fine.
Great, Amy. And yes, thank you again for all this great work that's been done on this. It's really exciting, I think, to learn more about from you all. So thank you.
Thank you, Nina. And I'll echo what Linda said about not dropping this and running away. I'm always happy to answer questions. And when I said, well, you would answer questions going forward, only to say you'll answer questions about what you do and your work. We always should answer questions about the work that we have done and will continue to do. So thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you all.
I think we actually do need to, if the ad hoc committee is adjourning, I think we actually do need to do a roll call very quickly.
I second.
Thank you. Carlo.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Sean.
Yes.
Andrew and I realize you'll probably be staying on in a different capacity.
Yes.
And yes. All right. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
To Amy and to the
Thank
Board
you.
of Library Trustees. We really appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh my gosh, the screens are just disappearing. We've had a call for a break.
Sounds good. So what do you want to take, like 5 minutes, Amy? 10
Is
minutes?
that enough? Is that enough?
Whatever you want. I'm flexible.
Monette, what would be good for you?
I can do it in 5.
Okay. Why don't
We've
you?
just had,
Sure.
I've had high school teachers just reaching out now, so I gotta,
Yeah.
they're a little late.
So we'll take a 5-minute
Absolutely. We
a
can take
breather.
5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever works.
Okay, we'll make it
Yep,
work.
that's okay.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay.
You're back.
All right. So if we're back, I know we're,
I don't think Andrew's back yet.
yeah. Alice is here. And John, are you back?
Not quite. Almost here. Hanging in there, Cherry?
I'm still here.
Oh, hopefully the minutes will be good and fast. Okay. Andrew. All right. It's going to make riveting watching on RCTV.
I know. I was thinking that too.
There we go.
Okay,
There we go.
perfect. All right, so I think we're all back. So, okay, I think, let me just get my agenda. So, for the approval of the minutes, so we had two from July 20th and August 10th from those meetings. Did anyone have any adjustments or changes or edits to make to the minutes from either the July or August dates?
I have one for the July one. Under the list of members present, my last name does not have a capital B.
Oh, good. Okay.
Thanks for that, Jerry.
Okay.
All right.
Are there any other notes on the minutes from the past 2 months? I thought I didn't really pick up on anything from either of them.
I thought they looked good.
Yeah,
Okay.
somewhere there's a minor typo that I think it's the August ones. It should say 2020 and it says 202. I'll have to take.
Oh, okay.
Very minor.
Good call.
Okay. You can handwrite those in.
Okay. So do we
Also,
oh, sorry, Alice.
in under the Ad Hoc Human Rights Committee one, there's the third line down. It says review of the process and rational. It should be rationale, I think, with an E. Just to have that make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Alice, which month was that?
That was the
That was July. That was July.
July, great.
Yeah.
So 2 corrections for July
Sorry.
and 1 for August.
The ad hoc committee thing is, yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Yep, I'm all confused on dates, sorry.
Anything else? If not, do we have a motion to approve the minutes as amended or as edited from July 20th and August 10th, 2020?
So moved.
Second.
So I'll just call out to do the vote as I see you on my screen. So Andrew?
Yes.
Monette?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
And Cherry?
Yes.
And yes for me as well. Okay, great. So then moving into the financial update. So the FY20 donor and giving update and the FY21.
Sure. So I gave you, this is in the packet that I gave to you, and just a couple other, so FY21 is going swimmingly. I just checked today. We just had a payroll go out today. We are running closer to about 1% now under budget, not 2%, but that goes up and down. It's it feels like a large number to me, but I know it's because we're not really using substitutes right now, and we're also down a full-time librarian. So we'll sit on that for a little while. The other thing is the gifts. So if you don't have any questions about the regular regular municipal budget, I'll just spend just a moment talking about gifts. this is something I had wanted to do. I haven't done it before, but it's to sort of give the year-end total of giving. First of all, this not related to FY20. In FY21, we have now received the fifth and final donation of the $50,000 pledge from Reading Cooperative. So that check is going into the bank, which is really exciting. I will have a letter of acknowledgement and thanks that goes out to that. I did want to check, John, this has been done through you traditionally. Is that okay if it still comes from you for this? Because you're the one who sort of got even though you're not the chair anymore.
Sure. Just call me ex-chair.
Okay. Ex officio. But no, so that was really great to have, and it's like it went to the library, then went John's house, and it's back to the library. So I was really excited to receive that. So that's all in the bank, as it were. I also gave you a summary of the FY20 giving, which is included some of our large donors. One was $10,000 that was into FY20, that was Reading Co-op's FY20 gift that came in, I think, November, December of 2019. We had also received a larger gift from the Nigros of $5,000 for support of the children's room. We had, in general donations, $360 that were sort of just thanks for being you kind of gifts. And you'll see we also had individual donations made for local history.
Amy,
yes.
Can I interrupt you for a minute?
Yes.
The Zemlin donation, her name is Arlene,
A-R-L-E-N-E. Thank you very much.
Yep.
And the Arlene Zemlin donation is to be for artwork. And they have asked about that, and I have just said that's we know we want it. The money is put aside. We will buy artwork. We just have not. It's just been nowhere on our priority list right now.
Right.
So we will get there. It is something that we want to do. I did want to note that not listed there, those were all sort of formal donations. They were donations that were deposited in FY20. There's a few things that came in March, April, and May, and even June that didn't actually get deposited until fiscal year 21. So they're hitting the fiscal year 21 account. So it's a little skewed. Normally it would have been a little bit more. But the other thing is, you know, the little basket that we always have out at the Borough Services desk. I sort of ran the cash donations. We do this instead of fines. We had about $1,300 in just sort of people dropping dollar bills and change, and and so that was for 3 quarters basically, from July until March. So all told, there's about almost $19,000 that came in through various donations last year. So I thought that would be nice for you to know.
Yeah.
That felt very comfortable. Are there any questions about the fiscal year 21 budget or donor and giving? Okay.
Okay, so does that bring us to the summer reading roundup, Amy?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. Hopefully I didn't just close the... Lorraine Berry wanted to give this. She had the Friends meeting, and then I was like, no, it'll be fine. I was thinking that there's no way in heck she'd be able to do both meetings, but she probably could have. So our summer reading roundup. We had 9 weeks of fun. So we ran our program as we normally do, which is about usually right between 8 and 10 weeks, but we compromised on 9 this year. The community read over almost 14,000 hours, 13,000 hours. We had 549 registrants, and it's obviously a much smaller number of actual registrants. But what's interesting is that it's not too far off from the actual number of registrants that fully participate, meaning sometimes we'll get folks that register and they do, they read 5 hours and then they're done for the summer, and that was enough for them. So these were 549 very fully engaged, especially if you do the math, how many hours that they read to get up to 13,861 hours. What was great was we were able to track where people were. So a lot of people were able to do their summer virtual reading online. And so we had people participating from 8 states. The Friends donated $3,000. So there was a milestone for each number of hours that were logged. And the goal was to be community supporting, particularly in view of COVID and people and families and communities that are so hard hit. So the Reading Food Pantry, Mission of Deeds, and a group called North Suburban Child and Family Resource Network, which really reaches out and works with early literacy programs, which we felt also really blended nicely with our own mission. So the Friends of the Reading Library supported all of that. We also had people coming from 14 towns to do it. So Lorraine's, I'll just read you Lorraine's little report. It's not a little report. I'm sorry, that makes it sound like she didn't. There we go. So pivot, and pivot again. The residents were very engaged. They had public service had performed or led story times, multiple book discussion groups, including a whole Black Lives Matter discussion day, and a brand new Let's Talk Books group. There was a job search series, trivia events, cooking programs, and more. This is kind of what blows my mind. They managed to pull off 25 virtual children's programs with 4,703 YouTube views, plus multi-generational programs with 2,188 views. There were 25 virtual teen programs with 320 online attendees, 10 multi-generational escape room events, 24 virtual adult programs with 182 online attendees and 49 views. They also worked together, the public services staff also banded together and came up with a pop-up service program, which was really integral to the summer reading, because the biggest push there was to get those summer reading books out to the kids. And they were open 5 Tuesday mornings and had 170 people that came and checked out books and got book recommendations. So it was really popular. The pop-up library outside will continue through September as long as weather permits. We'll talk about a little bit more about how and when we'll get people inside the library browsing in a little bit. But overall, I think what the staff pulled together in view of not being in the building until June, only partially in the building through June, somewhat back to normal staffing, but no normal services in July, and holding that course through August was absolutely incredible that they managed to pull this together. And I have heard nothing but excellent reports and people saying that the library just did a stellar job of getting out there and really trying to reach people. So kudos to the public services team. So any questions about the summer reading program?
No, sounds great.
That's great. Thanks, Amy. That was great. It was really fun too. The emails, because I participated, and the emails that went out were really fun, and it made it a fun summer. So
that's a shout out to Michelle and Desiree and the communications working group. Okay, not
great.
Michelle.
Yeah.
Really it's not job. Me. It was actually across departments. There were 2 members for each of the teams, and they created the emails that you would receive.
Really good.
Yeah.
Great job. Okay. So does anyone else have any questions about the summer reading program before we move on to the director's report? Okay. So I guess we can move on to the director's report, Amy.
Okay. I'm trying to crank through this. I'm really sorry. This is much later than we normally go. I've purchased a whole bunch of the stuff that I said that you guys approved last in August. So thank you very much for that. I gave you some statistics on the curbside. It's just increasing and increasing. We shifted. We changed a little bit how we do it. We're no longer doing it like 10-minute increments. You come in for group bulk hours, like from morning or afternoon or evening. But I want to note that the way we did it in the beginning, we really needed to do in order to control the flow. When we started, we had something like 50 or 60 bins of holds that we needed to get through, and there was no way we could get around the fact that there was flat out a 2-week wait to get your stuff. We just could, that was stuff that had already been ordered. So once we caught up to that, we were able to really, the borrower services staff just really started cranking out and turning it over. So now people are able to pretty much get next day appointments once they get their holds picked up, so, or holds informed that their holds are coming in. I just wanted to give you a sense of some of the stuff that has been going on that is very sort of, who'd have thunk with COVID. The most popular children's room video program award goes to the Weekend Wonder Bag DIY Chia Pet. So what happens is, for the past few weeks, and I think they're going to continue this on here and there, one of the crafts involved actually the vote, but the children's room has been putting out free craft kit bags. So they put together a craft, they videotape the person, a librarian doing it, and then they just left a bin out there, and you would come and pick up your bin, your craft bag, and you take it home, and you would make whatever it was that Miss Kate or Miss Olivia or Miss Ashley put together, and it was like a little family activity. So apparently the Chia Pet was really really popular. You know, they've been really creative. They had, the teens had virtual mug meal series. They had, you know, their most popular was lava cakes, which I kind of want to go back and watch and figure out if I can do that. There were some great attendance as part of the vote program, the Lockwood for Presidents, a living performance history with Ann Barrett. And then the stamped virtual book discussions. There was one for, you know, middle school, high school, and then, you know, even though it's a young adult book, there were 10 attendees at the adult discussions.
I was there. It was great.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can really just see the diversity of stuff that's going on, and these are all virtual. And as much as some of us miss the in-person stuff, it's pretty creative and it's pretty wonderful. I also wanted to give you just an update of how our in-library reservations are going. We are now just starting our second full week. We had the Labor Day week, which was short, but, you know, so basically starting the third week. But just, you can see from 6 days, so when I put this report together last week for you all, they're slow. We had 13 computer reservations, so it's basically about 2 per day. 12 study reservations, about 12 per day, a couple reservations up in the children's room, and then, you know, one for the business space, which is really the studio. And by business, all we're saying is that you can talk on the phone and you can have the noise on in your computer. Every other space is fairly silent. So we're going to try and keep this going for another little while. We have a team that's working on the project plan for limited browsing. You know, at first it was like, maybe that would be late September. Now it's like the first week of October, and, you know, maybe it's the first or second week of October. The challenges that are involved with the browsing is that in order to do that, we must open up to, well, we don't must, but it doesn't make sense to open it up to do it unless you're opening up all 3 floors. So we need to be able to have some staffing on the ground floor, because that's like half of the physical collection. We've had people visiting Andover and really talking with other libraries that are doing browsing and how they're handling that. The quarantine it doesn't seem to really be a lot of quarantine for things that are handled during browsing. If something's handled during browsing, it doesn't go into quarantine for 7 days, or 5 days, like it does with something that's been in your home for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month and handled with the DVD going in and out of your device and that kind of thing. So there's sort of it's sort of more around that 24-hour quarantine thing. So we are working on that. Andover does it by reservation. You basically sign up and you get, I think it's like 90 minutes. Michelle, jump in anytime that I say something that it's wrong. There's no question that there's going to be really high anxiety, both on the part of the staff as well as the public coming in. It's going to need to be very, I think probably it could be something that we just have 5 browsers, every 2 hours, so that we can make sure we have time to clean or something like that. So there is a group that's working on the logistics. The hardest part is making sure that we don't overcrowd one area. So if for some reason, I don't know why it would be, but if some reason all 5 people that signed up wanted to go browse the mystery section, well, that's a little tiny room in the back of the basement. So we have to that's why we need to make sure areas are staffed. The other thing I just really wanted to bring up very quickly about COVID, I don't think you need to have a vote on this, although you can vote on this if you want. But I would like to recommend that we put off having our Sunday hours until at least November, only because we are looking at browsing. So we are looking at trying to add a new service. In addition, the last week of October, we're going to have the early voting again in the library, and that will cover at least one Sunday, which sort of seems a little, it went really smoothly, and I have no problem with hosting the early voting. It's just that it's a whole bunch of other people that are in the building at the same time. And frankly, we did do a survey of who would be available for working Sundays. And it's a little different than normal. We normally have a lot more people that are like, sure, I'd love to work a Sunday. I love getting overtime. It's only for a few hours. We have some people that normally work that are a little more, they're not sort of jumping at the idea. So we do need to work a little bit on staffing. We may have to look into hiring another substitute, and just so that we can make sure we have minimal staffing, safety staffing required. So if there's no objections, I'd like to just push off and we'll figure out how we do the communications on that. It would be November, at least through May, unless there's any objections.
That seems very reasonable to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
That's fine.
I want to make sure it's not like, it seems like we're denying service or anything. It's a lot, you know, I feel like it's a lot for us to do the hours that we're doing. And I think just putting it on in October would have been one kind of extra thing.
Could I just ask about the impact of that early voting on, was it difficult for staff, or did you have a lot of cleaning afterwards, or how did they, how did the town handle it?
They were great.
Okay.
It was, you know, there was like the first day, there were a couple, you know, whoopses and oopses, and we got to really, really rethink about this. But once we got it going, I mean, I think after the first day, everything went really, really super smoothly. There were, you know, we just, you know, it's like anything else. There were a few little kinks to work out, but I'm meeting with Laura this week to talk about, you know, what else needs to change, if anything needs to change, or if the setup was fine. But they did all the cleaning. They had all their own sprays and wipes and everything. And then the custodians were there too. The police department was there sometimes doing, you know, trying to help with traffic. That was probably the biggest complaint we had was, you know, because we were trying to do curbside pickup on some days and there was early voting. so yeah, that can be a little confusing, but the staff, I think, really handled it very, very well. And the volunteers were great from the election. They weren't volunteers. Some of them were paid, I think. So any questions about the current in library services or any of the
Amy, just one
services
question
we're offering?
is, I know at our last meeting you had said you were working to try to extend the Wi-Fi into the parking lot.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you could give an update on that. And if you have done that, I'm wondering if people are taking advantage of it.
We haven't done that.
Okay.
And the majority, and we'll talk about this when we talk about security, but I think it's because of where they need to do the wiring to get some of the access points outside.
Okay.
So IT is aware of it. We've tried everything we can to boost it from inside the building, but I think it's the infrastructure is somehow interfering with it. And I don't know why, but it's just not working really well. It could be the equipment that we have. So we need to purchase external mounted Wi-Fi extenders that are, you know, rated for outside and direct them. And then in order to do that, there's wiring and stuff. It's definitely on a list of things to do. The electrician and the IT, we were actually asked to put that definitely on hold until after September, so that everybody, all of the entire facilities department has been pretty much dedicated on getting the schools ready for this week. So most of the work orders we had in place before by mid-August were on hold.
Okay.
So, personnel. Like I said, we substitutes. We've lost one of our main Sunday substitutes, and also Joanne McElhaney and Megan Coughlin, who has been a page since she was in high school. She actually has another job. I think she's in a CPA, but she's a page here. She used to love it on Wednesday nights. And she also has decided not to come back. So we have filled in those page hours with our pages who, one of whom is living at home because she's not going to college away. And our high school pages have just had more time. And the hardest part is to tell you that Lorraine Berry submitted her letter of retirement effective January 2021. Lorraine's, all of you know Lorraine. It's none of us are surprised. We're really kind of tickled that she stayed this long. She has a whole big family that she'd like to be spending more time with. So we're really sad about that, but it gives us a lot of time to make sure that we get the right person in the right job. Also, I'm pretty sure I mentioned this, but Melissa Selden is our full-time adult services librarian one. We are working on getting the children's services librarian one position filled as well. It's challenging time to be doing interviews remotely, making offers and figuring all that out. So I think we're closer than we were, and we're just sort of waiting on some final reference checks and things for that.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions about personnel? Okay. I won't spend too much time on the strategic planning update, other than to say we had a meeting on the 27th. There was just actually, we had also had a staff meeting. The August 27th meeting was with sort of stakeholders, and Nina and Monette were both there. Thank you. And I'm hoping one or both of you will be able to join us on the 16th, on Wednesday the 16th as well. And then from that, we'll get some, draft proposals of strategic plans for the consultants. It's really been an interesting process, and it's very different from other processes, times we've done it, which is nice because it just gives some context and different perspectives. And Nina was kind enough to come to the deep dive into data meeting that we had with the staff, which kind of gave the staff some practice on how to look at some of the market segmentation data research that's been done, and how we ran through a few exercises, and now we can take that and practice it ourselves and come up with some ideas of how we can provide additional service. So that's going along. And that's pretty much been keeping us busy. We should have the IRIS report and the state aid report done. Well, it has to be done by October 2nd, so it should be done imminently. And that's pretty much it for the director.
Okay. Do we have any questions about the director's report or any other business to bring up tonight before we move into executive session?
I do have one. I do have one thing. I don't know if Nina or Monette, if you want to talk about it, but I will share my screen. So I wanted to propose, and I asked Nina and Monette if they would consider, if they would consider if the trustees would be willing to, or how they felt about, and it might be a little overkill, it may not be needed, but through various experiences and stories that we've heard from libraries in our communities, that having an official face coverings policy, it does mirror exactly what the state and Board of Health says, but it very specifically says something that would say, and I will read this because Cherry, this wasn't sent to you. I can email you a copy if you wish, but I will read it to you. Until for a face covering policy, it would be considered temporary until further notice, in alignment with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and CDC guidance. Face coverings are required for all individuals over the age of 2 while in public areas of the Reading Public Library in order to address asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic transmission, which is transmission from an infected individual who may or may not have symptoms. So in order to address the asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic transmission of COVID-19, face coverings are also recommended, although not required, in private spaces such as restaurants. Visitors are expected to have their own face coverings if they do not have one. We will have a limited supply available. Visitors who cannot wear a face covering should contact the library to discuss other ways the library can meet your service needs. This policy will remain in place until the Board of Library Trustees votes otherwise. So there have been cases where in libraries, the current policies have some room for interpretation, such as you only have to wear a mask if you're not social distancing. That's probably a great way to interpret it. I think one of the ways that I would recommend that we interpret it is that it is one of several things that we're doing. So face coverings and social distancing and good hand hygiene are required in the library. I think that this is important for the staff and for the public, because the staff need to feel comfortable that even if they're wearing a mask and behind plexiglass, that the person on the other side is also respecting that. I guess I'll just drop that. I have some questions that people might ask. You know, why are we required to wear them? Do I have to wear it the entire time I'm at the library? Will the face covering really protect me? How long will this policy be in effect? I guess I just wanted to put it out there for you all to consider and vote on.
Amy, just one thing is, the top part says this policy will remain in place until the Board of Library Trustees votes otherwise. The FAQ says the policy is going to be in effect until guidance from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts lifts the current restrictions. Now,
okay.
I understand that ultimately we're looking for guidance from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and if once we get that guidance, then the board could vote on this. But I think we just want to be consistent in what we're saying.
Yep. I totally just missed that. I was typing at 2 different times. That's all.
Okay. And a recommended change I would make is that the policy is in effect until guidance from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts lifts the current restrictions. As I trust that you would make the right decision once the Commonwealth makes the decision. I would hate, you know, if things were to dramatically change and all of a sudden things were perfect and we didn't need face masks anymore, I wouldn't want to have to wait for a Board of Library Trustees meeting.
No, I totally get that. So basically, if I just eliminate that line that says about the vote, and we go with until guidance from the Commonwealth lifts the current restrictions.
Right. Perfect.
Great.
Yeah, I think that this is a good idea, Amy. I mean, especially with the with people who are going to be coming into the building more now. You know, I think it is. I think it's important to have something for you know, the staff to point to, but also just to be consistent with like other, you know, businesses and public and private organizations around the Commonwealth are doing this. So I think it makes sense.
One of the comments we've heard too is, well, I can go into a restaurant and take off my mask, so why can't I come into the library and sit down and take off my mask? And I think one of the things we want to stress, and this has come up in several of our staff discussions, which is we often get compared to retail entities. And I can see how that is. We do have customer service, but we are not a retail entity. And we do have a specific purpose. And, you know, even then, there's a difference between being a restaurant or a clothing store or a grocery store. And grocery stores have really high incidence, well, relatively, you know, their workers are at risk. And there are, you know, that's one of the things that we're trying to, because those are essential things, they can't provide some of these limits that we're asking to say, which is to sit, if you're going to sit there for 2 hours studying, that you need to keep your, you know, unless you're drinking, that kind of thing, you know, But we do have no food. We actually have a no food guideline right now. No food in the library. You can bring a water bottle in, or all liquids must be covered. So.
What about enforcement? This is Alice.
Yep.
What about, how would you sort of go about implementing it if there's resistance?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do?
So we have been talking about that, and we have most of the staff have gone through some training that is I don't want to say de-escalation, but sort of approaching it from a really positive perspective, which is most people who don't come in without a mask forget, and they left it at home, they left it in their car. The second person was maybe trying to get away with it, and then now you caught them. Then there are the people that are going to be problems, and those people would probably be the same problem people that we had with any rule that we put in place. So we're trying to make sure that we're thinking about how to handle each one of those types of folks. So one is having the masks available, some disposable masks available to give away. Ultimately, not abiding by our guidelines, safety guidelines and policies immediately allows us to ask you to leave the library. So if someone were obviously looking at porn, or the kids were roughhousing and throwing things, we have a perfect right to ask them to leave. Should they not leave, we would do what we normally do, which is, okay, then we have to call the police. And it's not something that we want to do. It's certainly our very last resort. But none of us are the staff are not trained to do that, and that's why the police are in our town. We've also talked about the how we're going to handle the process of you've been spoken to. That's your verbal warning. Here's a copy of the policy. Here's a written warning. And you need to leave now, and you may not be able to come back. And gee, you're really just ignoring us, so you may have your privileges suspended. I've even drafted up a very special little no trespass order just for this type of event. I don't know how much it will happen. The folks the places that have started opening up the services, most people they're just grateful to be in the library, whether it's using a computer or whether it's browsing. There are very, very few incidences of that happening. Most people want to work with you. People who don't want to work with you don't want to work with you for other reasons than the fact that this is, they may say they think it's a stupid policy, but there's other, usually mental health, usually stress related issues that some of our staff have been trained in dealing with. And obviously if it escalates, we would have to call public safety.
Thanks.
Do we want to vote on this tonight to put this in, Amy? Do you think that we should take a vote tonight?
If you feel comfortable, I guess I often defer to Monette on the verbiage for some of the people's stuff. But if you felt that it was okay, if you and Monette felt it was okay. Jerry, do you have any questions? I know you can't.
Yeah, I think it sounds good. And I think that at this point, every public place that I go into has signs right on the door saying you need to be wearing a face covering. So I don't think this will be a shock to anyone that is trying to enter a public space. So I'm sure, there could be, of course, I'm not saying that, no one will have any issue with it. I'm just saying, this is kind of, I think we're all used to this right now, at this point. So I don't really anticipate huge pushback, I hope. No. But I personally think it's a good idea.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree too. Yeah.
So
I think.
So yeah, sorry, Sherry, what were you saying?
No, I just was saying that I think it's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only reasonable thing you can do, frankly.
Yep, absolutely. And I think it's really, I like that also it says, if someone doesn't want to, there's other ways that maybe the library can meet your service needs. So it is kind of adding in that, understanding that maybe someone isn't comfortable wearing one for the time that they're in there, but there's other things that we can provide them. So I think that's a great addition as well. So do we have a motion to adopt the face coverings policy as written or amended tonight with Monette's suggestions?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
A second. Okay, so I'm going to just call through. Okay, so Andrew?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to find
Monette?
my mute.
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
Cherry?
Yes.
And I say yes as well. Okay, great.
Thank you very much. This will be of great relief to the staff. And again, sometimes it's just being able to point to something. So I really appreciate you thinking and taking the time, and Monette and Nina for working on this. All right, so that comes to the end of our regular session, and I think we do need to have a motion to move into executive session.
Okay. So do we have a motion to move into executive session at this time?
I move that we move into executive session at this time.
Second.
Okay, and we vote on that too, right, Amy? So, all right, Andrew?
Yes.
Monette?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
And Cherry?
Yes.
And I say yes as well.
Okay. So I don't know if I can remove RCTV, but RCTV needs to go off.
So for executive session, I still take minutes, right?